You wake to the smell of incense still curling in your nostrils and the ache in your hips that remember too many steps. The room is dim, the oil lamp long since extinguished, and the hallway outside is silent, but it's a restless quiet. You must have dozed off between clients. It happens, especially on nights that stretch too long and blend into one another like a watercolor left in the rain. Before we continue, take a moment to rate this journey and subscribe if you find value in these explorations, and in the comments, leave your city and the time. It's nice to know who else is awake in the quiet corners of this world. Now, dim the lights. Find a private place. Let's begin. You sit up slowly, blinking, adjusting to the soft light filtering through a tiny slit of a window high on the far wall. It's the hour before dawn. Your body knows it, even without a clock. That preternatural stillness before the city stirs again, before the carts begin to creak and the dogs begin to bark, and the fishmongers cry out like town criers, praising their crustaceans. You stumble into the hallway, looking for water, or at least someone sane enough to share a moment of peace with. Instead, you find something unexpected. A woman, middle-aged, wrapped in a heavy woolen stola, is standing near the entrance as if she is lost and too proud to admit it. She isn't a prostitute. That's clear immediately. She is clean, well-fed, and tries not to touch the walls with her gloved hands. But she isn't a client either. Women don't come here for pleasure, not openly. You meet her gaze. Her eyes are dark, lined with coal and wide with something between fear and determination. "Are you the one they call Felicia?" she asks. Her voice is sharp, not cruel, but clipped, like someone used to being obeyed. You nod cautiously. She steps closer, pulling her veil tighter. "I need a service," she says. You stay silent. It's the safest answer. "My husband..." She stops, swallows, and glances around to make sure no one is listening. "He prefers women like you. I want to understand why." You blink. Not the question you were expecting. She sees your expression and straightens her spine. "I am not here to judge," she says, "or to plead. I want to know what I'm doing wrong." You lean against the wall, crossing your arms. "Why would you come here to ask?" Her lips twist. "Because he comes here, week after week. I followed him once, saw him enter your door as if it were a temple." She falls silent. "Do you love him?" you ask. This throws her off. She looks down. "I don't know, but I hate not understanding." You gesture toward your room. She hesitates, then enters as if crossing into another world. You sit across from her on the mattress. She remains standing, rigid, her hands clasped as if she's afraid she might catch shame from the very air. You study her. The earrings are modest but real gold, rings on both hands, a faint scent of myrtle and lemon oil. A woman of standing. She is used to being looked at, but not like this. "I'm not going to give you advice on how to seduce your husband," you say softly. "That's not what I do." She nods. "Then tell me what you do." You pause. "I let men feel seen, just long enough for them to forget who they're pretending to be." You let the words hang in the air. She sinks onto a stool, her fingers trembling slightly. "Does it work?" she asks. "Most of the time, they fall in love." You shake your head. "They fall into want. Love is a different thing." She's silent, studying the frayed edges of your blanket. "What does he ask for?" she whispers. "What does he need that I don't give him?" You exhale. "It's not about you. It's about what he cannot say to you, what he's not allowed to want. This place, this room, me, I am permission. You are the rules. The silence that follows is thick, not angry, just heavy, like a truth dropped into the center of a still pond. Eventually she stands. Her face has gone remote the way noble women do, the walls rebuilding in real time. She adjusts her veil and says, "Thank you," in a voice that holds no gratitude. You nod, and she leaves without looking back. Historical note. In Roman society, there were strict legal categories for women, and a matrona, a respected married woman, was held to rigid standards of conduct. Visiting a brothel was unthinkable. Even being seen talking too casually with men in public could launch a campaign of rumors. Still, some did come, veiled, anonymous, quiet, for information, for services, for revenge, or perhaps, sometimes, for connection. Little known fact. Some Roman wives would send their female slaves to spy on their husbands in brothels. Others would consult fortune tellers, augurs, or dream interpreters to find the cause of a husband's wandering affections. A few went further and hired prostitutes themselves, whether to learn, to compete, or to retaliate, one can only guess. And the ongoing scholarly debate. Did brothels like the Lupanar ever become informal consultation centers for upper-class women? It sounds preposterous, but there are fragments of letters, satires, and graffiti that suggest a handful of noble women formed relationships, sometimes friendships, with the workers. Was it common? Probably not. But in Rome, nothing was ever truly off limits, just expensive. You walk out to the common room and see Granea, rubbing oil into her elbows with practiced motions. She glances at you. Another client. Something like that. Was she rich? Probably. Did she cry? Almost. Granea nods, as if that makes perfect sense. They usually are once they realize we know their husbands better than they do. You walk to the front stoop, where the light is just beginning to touch the stone street. The fruit seller is already setting up his cart. You sit, leaning your back against the warm stone, and breathe. You are tired, but not asleep. Emptied, but not broken, not yet. You've barely made it back inside when the smell hits you, sweet, sharp, and earthy. Someone has lit incense. Not the cheap kind the master uses to mask the smell of sweat and spilled wine, but something richer, almost ceremonial. Frankincense, maybe. Or myrrh. This is unusual. You follow the scent to the small shrine tucked in a corner of the atrium. An alcove where the girls leave offerings when they are desperate or lucky, or both. The shrine is dedicated, of course, to Venus and Priapus, that leering, wide-eyed god of enormous anatomy. His carved figure is propped in the corner, his red-painted phallus still shiny from years of girls touching it for luck. Today, someone has made an effort. Fresh rose petals are scattered on the ledge. A tiny clay cup of wine. 2 figs sit beside a lit candle. You look around and spot Marcia by the pool, her eyes red, but her chin held high. She sees you watching and shrugs. I figured it couldn't hurt. You nod. Everyone understands what she means. Her belly isn't showing yet, but it will be soon. She's no longer pretending. She's asking for a miracle, or a midwife, or maybe just a few weeks of peace. You walk over, take one of the petals from the ledge, and roll it between your fingers. You think Venus cares about girls like us? You ask. Marcia laughs, a bitter sound but not unkind. If she doesn't, we're all in the wrong profession. Fair point. You drop the petal onto the offering plate and whisper a prayer. You don't even know what you're asking for anymore. Maybe just for today, to be no worse than yesterday. A shout comes from the front room. Merope appears in the doorway, waving a piece of cloth like a victory banner. Guess who finally paid up? She yells. Took 2 threats and a broken stool, but he did it. You and Marcia exchange a look. Maripe is your patron saint of persistence. On the way to your room, you pass the frescoes again. The colors are fading. You've looked at them so many times you have every angle, every pose, every exaggerated smile memorized. You used to think they were funny. They feel more like a checklist now. In your room, you relight the oil lamp and find the dried bay leaf you hid weeks ago, still brittle, still whole. You tuck it into a crack behind the head of your bed, where it joins a growing collection of tiny trinkets, scraps of silk, a broken ring, a bead from a client's necklace. You're not sure why you keep them. Maybe they're anchors. Maybe you just don't like it when things disappear without a trace. A quiet knock on your door breaks your thoughts. It's the new girl, Julia, you think, flitting like a sparrow trapped indoors. She has that wide-eyed look again, the one that says she hasn't accepted this place as permanent yet. Can I talk to you? She asks. You nod her in. She perches on the edge of the stool, twisting her fingers in her lap. Is it always like this? She asks. The noise, the smell, the way they don't look at you after? You exhale. No, you say. Sometimes they look for too long. She frowns. I thought it would get easier after the first time, but it hasn't. You nod slowly. It gets easier to pretend. That isn't the same thing. What if I can't? Then don't, you reply. Take the coin you've earned and disappear before the master notices. She shakes her head. I have nowhere to go. I didn't either, you say. I still don't, but I'm still here. She leaves a few minutes later, her face blank. You hope she either gets used to this life or finds a way out quickly. Being stuck in the middle is the worst fate. Historical note. The cult of Priapus, often twinned with Venus in brothel shrines, was as much vulgar as it was pious. Priapus was a protector of gardens, fertility, and boundary stones. His statues were placed at entrances not just for blessing, but to ward off thieves and bad luck. In a brothel, he served as both a joke and a guardian, a reminder of what you were selling and of who you prayed wouldn't destroy you. Little known fact. Some shrines had curses carved into the base, warnings to those who would dare harm the women inside. May his cock shrivel, one reads, if he leaves without paying. You always liked that one. And the scholarly debate. Were these shrines genuinely spiritual or just superstitious theater? Were they acts of faith or tools of comfort in a world that offered you none? Some believe the offerings were just habit. Others argue they were lifelines, a way to feel seen by someone, anything, even a leering stone god with an enormous phallus. You lie down again, not to sleep, but just to close your eyes and drift a little. You listen to the mumble of voices through the thin walls. Someone laughs. Someone sobs. It's a lullaby you've heard 1,000 times, and you still can't decide if it's comforting or unbearable. The heat doesn't break. Even deep in the night, the Lupanar holds the warmth like a fever dream. The stone floor is tacky against your bare feet. The air is too thick to move through without feeling it curdle in your lungs. You're sitting on your mattress, fanning yourself lazily with a strip of parchment, listening to the muffled thud of an argument down the hall. Then your name is called. Barked. Get out here. It's Grania. The scene is unfolding right outside Merape's room. She's nose to nose with Nisa, both girls flushed with fury. Between them is a client, wide-eyed, shirtless, clutching his sandals like he regrets every decision in his life. She stole him. Nisa hisses, he asked for me, and she dragged him into her room. I offered him a discount. Merape shoots back, smiling through her teeth. And that's not against the rules. Grenea sighs, pinching the bridge of her nose. Felicia, she says, you're neutral. What do we do? You rub your temples. Let me talk to the client. You mutter. The man blinks, sweaty and trapped. Who did you ask for? You ask gently. I thought Nissa, he says, but she said she'd do it for half. You nod. You look at the girls. He's not worth it, you say. If you're fighting over clients who pay half, you both lose. That seems to deflate them more than anything. Grenea nods in satisfaction and shoos them into separate doorways. You go back to your room, propping the stool against the door so no one else barges in. A quiet tap at the door distracts you. You crack it open to see Marcia. Can I sleep in here tonight? She asks. Nisa's still throwing things. You sigh and let her in. She curls up at the foot of your mattress without another word. You lie beside her, staring at the ceiling. Do you ever think about leaving? You ask. She nods with her eyes closed. All the time. I just don't know where I'd go. You understand. You've thought about running too. You even have a fantasy. Sneak onto a northbound cart, find a place in a town where no one knows you, work as a tavern wench. But then you remember what it costs to survive here. Out there, you'd be alone. At least here, you know the rules. Historical note. Rivalry between women in Roman brothels wasn't just personal. It was often a matter of survival. Scraps of legal documents and graffiti hint at competition between prostitutes, sometimes violent fights over clients, territory, or even names. Some girls relied on tattoos, jewelry, or even specific perfumes to stand out. Little known fact. In one brothel in Ostia, two women named Sabina repeatedly defaced each other's graffiti, scratching out names, writing insults, accusing each other of theft. Petty, maybe, but it's the kind of pettiness born from desperation. And the scholarly debate? Was there an internal hierarchy in brothels? A ranking system among the girls? Some believe those positioned near the entrance were the most experienced or profitable. Others argue it was random. In your case, you think Grenea positions the girls so they don't kill each other. Practical, if not strategic. Marcia is asleep now. You can hear her slow, steady breathing. You take your shawl and cover both of you. You close your eyes and listen to the Lupanar settle for the night. The creak of wood, a distant snore, the quiet sound of someone weeping down the hall. You could leave right now. Take your coins, wake Marcia, and run. You don't. The sun isn't up, but the sky has begun to take on that soft, dusty glow that only happens in the brief calm before the world starts screaming again. You sit up slowly, trying not to wake Marcia. Her hands are resting on her stomach now, almost protectively. She never says what she's gonna do, and you don't ask. You pull on your sandals and head to the common basin. Hope it's for a sip of cool water. But as you turn the corner, you freeze. There's a girl sitting there you don't know. Tall with tangled reddish blonde hair and skin so pale you can see the blue veins in her wrists. She is scrubbing her hands raw. Her tunic is worn, ill-fitting, clearly someone else's. She doesn't look up until you're beside her. When she does, her eyes are wide and dazed like a trapped animal. After a moment she speaks, her voice hoarse and thick with a foreign accent. Where is this place? Pompeii, you say gently. The Lupanar. She flinches at the name. They told me it was a bathhouse. You bite back a curse. Not the first time someone's been tricked. One look at her tells you she's not from around here. Gaul, maybe. You've seen girls like her before. They arrive in the night, stunned, bruised, and confused. By the time they figure out where they are, it's too late. They brought me from Narbo, she whispers, said my debts would be forgiven. You kneel beside her, wetting a rag in the basin. What's your name? She hesitates. They call me Aya, but I had another name. Do you want me to call you by that name? She shrugs. I don't remember it. You nod, handing her the rag. Are you hungry? She blinks. Yes. You lead her to the kitchen alcove, where a hunk of hard cheese and the remains of some bread are wrapped in a linen cloth. She eats as if she's not sure she's allowed to. You sit beside her and wait until she's finished. You aren't a slave, you say softly, but you will feel like one here, and if you fight, it will be worse. You have two choices: learn the rules quickly or leave before your name gets scratched into the walls. She nods slowly, stiffly, like someone who doesn't yet understand what she's agreeing to. Later, you introduce her to Grenea. There's a brief, silent exchange of looks. Room 6? Grenea says flatly. No clients until she's cleaned up. She looks at you. She's your problem now. Of course she is. You explain the basics to Aya. Which water is safe to drink, where to find oil, who to avoid when they're drunk. She nods, a quick study, saying almost nothing. You recognize that silence. It's armor. You leave her in her new room, empty and stuffy. She sits on the edge of the bed, staring at the mattress as if it might bite her. Is it always like this? She finally asks. It gets worse, you reply. And then you add, but some days are funny. Some of the clients smell like boiled onions. Some forget how to untie their sandals. You learn to laugh, even when you want to scream. She smiles, a tiny thing, but it's something. Historical conclusion. Rome was a cultural melting pot, but not in the neat, idealized way it's often imagined. It was the messy, brutal place, built on a hierarchy that allowed people to be bought and sold like sacks of flour. Foreign women were often trafficked into prostitution, some as prisoners of war, others as indentured workers who chose sex work when all other doors closed. The Romans even had words for them: exotica, barbarie, labels that made them more appealing to clients but fundamentally less human. Little known fact. Some of these women were sold at public auctions with placards detailing their skills and temperament. There are records of Greek-speaking girls fetching higher prices. Others, like women from Germania or Gaul, were considered wild and unbroken. This wasn't always a bad thing for men seeking novelty. It was a brand. And the scholarly battle. Were foreign prostitutes treated worse? Some argue yes, that they were outsiders in every sense. Others believe their novelty protected them, that their rarity gave them value, at least for a time. Either way, they rarely lasted long. The city either broke them or buried them. You take one last look at your reflection before the first client of the morning calls your name. You adjust your tunic and step into the hall. Another day, another girl, another slow grind through the same brutal cycle, but at least she has a name. And for now, that's enough. You've been working long enough to know the difference between a good night and a profitable one. Last night was neither. Just a string of clients with small coins, one broken sandal, and the persistent feeling that something in your back has shifted permanently. The pain hums behind your ribs like an old drum beat. You're sitting on your cot, hunched over, rubbing your calves and wondering if you're getting old or just finally noticing what your body's been through. Probably both. A knock. Too soft to be a client. You open the door, and there's Aya blinking. Her hair is combed now. She's borrowed someone's blue tunic, a size too big, and cinched it with a rope. She smells faintly of rosemary and ash. "How do I look?" she asks. You shrug. "Better than many." "Am I ready?" No one is ever ready. You let her in and sit her on the stool while you rummage through your chest. You pull out a small clay pot with the dregs of faded rouge in your dull bronze comb. She watches as you dip your fingers into the red powder and gently smudge it onto her cheeks. "It won't last," you say, "but men are stupid and suggestible, and it makes it look like you have blood in your face, which they like." Next is the coal stick, more of a nub now. You wet it with spit and carefully trace the line of her lashes. "Don't move," you mutter. You flinch, you smudge, you look like a circus clown. "What's a circus clown?" "Exactly." She doesn't laugh. She just stares at her reflection in your bronze mirror. "I look like someone else." "That's the point." "Do you ever wear wigs?" she asks. You shake your head. "Only the expensive girls do that. That's how you know you've made it, when not even your hair has to be your own." She gives a small giggle. "Someday then?" You grin. "Someday you'll be able to wear curls down to your knees and charge a senator's son 3 denarii just to touch them." You open a small box, coaxing out the last drops of your cheap perfume. "There," you say. "Now you're ready to pretend you're who the men want instead of who they bought." She frowns. "Aren't they the same thing?" "No," you say. "One feels worse. Your first client is already in your room, waiting. He's young, trying to look older, with a greasy mustache and too much cologne. You go through the motions, laugh at his dumb jokes, call him Dominus, even though you know he's probably a baker's nephew. When he's done, he tosses a silver coin in the bowl and swaggers out like a gladiator. You fall back and stare at the ceiling. There's a crack in one of the painted clouds, and you try to remember if it was always there. After washing up, you walk out to the courtyard, needing a breath of air. You find Merapi there, sitting on a step, aggressively filing her nails with a shard of tile. If one more of these idiots asks if I'm Greek, I swear I'm gonna start speaking in goat. You raise an eyebrow. Why goat? Because they'd probably like it. You snort, sitting beside her. At least they're talking. I had one today who didn't say a word, just grunted when he was done and left. Better than the talkers, she mutters. Last week, one gave me a monologue about his mother's cooking while I was on top of him. Put me off lentils for good. Historical injection. Roman sex workers, especially on the lower end, often used makeup and scents to signal their availability. While a matrona, a respected married woman, was expected to appear modest and reserved, prostitutes were encouraged and sometimes required to look the opposite: red cheeks, heavily lined eyes, unnaturally high-piled hair. These were the marks of your trade. In fact, the more garish your appearance, the easier it was for a man to justify paying you for what he couldn't admit he wanted from his wife. Little known fact. Some prostitutes used lead powder to whiten their skin, giving it the pale, statuesque glow that also, of course, slowly poisoned them. Lips were stained with crushed mulberries, nails with rust or ochre, and teeth were sometimes cleaned with a mixture of ash and vinegar, so acidic it ate through the enamel. Beauty in this business was pain in more ways than one. And the perpetual scholarly debate: Were these cosmetic rituals acts of empowerment, performance, or just survival? Some historians argue that prostitutes use makeup to create identities of their own, pushing back against social norms. Others claim it was just another layer of commodification, a painted mask designed to fulfill fantasies that had nothing to do with the woman underneath. In truth, it was probably both, power and a cage in equal measure. You stand up slowly, brushing the dust from your knees, and head back to your room. On the way, you pass Aya again. Her lips are red now, too red, and the coal is slightly smudged, but she's holding her head higher. She gives you a single nod as you pass. It's progress. The knock is too soft to be one of the regulars. You are lying on your side, picking at the strap of your sandal, when the light tap comes. 3 faint raps, as if someone is hoping you'll pretend you didn't hear. You call out, "Come in," without trying to sound welcoming. You don't expect to see a veiled woman in a full stola walk in as if she's either lost or about to confess to a murder. She stops at the threshold. You don't get up. Instead, you watch her from where you lie. Her shoes are expensive. Her veil is of linen so fine you can see the glint of earrings beneath it. She smells of citrus oil and roses, the real kind, the kind worn by women who have enough coin to waste on things that evaporate into the air. She doesn't speak until the curtain has settled fully behind her. Then in a small, nervous voice she says, "Are you Felicia?" "I am," you answer. You sit up slowly, watching her. "I was told you give advice." You blink. "Who told you?" She hesitates. "A cousin. She was here years ago. She said you speak like someone who sees things." You snort. "Well, she wasn't wrong. I've seen a lot of things." She fusses with a ring on her finger. "It's my husband," she says. "Of course it is. He's changed, distant, cold. He doesn't look at me the way he used to. I thought, perhaps if I understood what he wanted, I could give it to him." You exhale and lean forward. "You're asking the wrong question." "Then what's the right one? Why do you need him to want you to feel whole?" She tenses. You don't let up. "Let me guess. You wear what he likes. You bathe in the perfume he gave you. You smile when you're tired. And you've learned which of his jokes are the ones worth laughing at." She is silent. "That's your answer." "Men don't come to prostitutes because we're more beautiful," you continue. "They come here because we don't ask them to be husbands or fathers. We let them be exactly who they are with no consequences. You want him to want you again? Make him feel invisible. It'll drive him mad." She stares at the floor, silent. You think she's about to stand up and leave, but instead, she says quietly, "When I was younger, I wanted to be a priestess of Bona Dea." You blink. "I wasn't allowed," she continues. "My father married me off before I was 15. After that, I forgot how to want things that weren't permitted." You look at her hands. They're trembling slightly. "You want advice?" you say. "Stop trying to be his fantasy. Make him earn the right to be in yours." She looks up, and for a moment her veil slips just enough for you to see her eyes, lined with coal, wet at the corners. "You're wasted here," she whispers. "You know that, don't you?" You shrug. "Where else would I go?" She stands up slowly. "Thank you," she says. Then she pulls a small, round, heavy object from the folds of her sleeve, a tiny silver mirror. She places it on your shelf without looking. "For you," she says. "Not payment, a gift." You stare at the mirror for a long time after she's gone. It's exquisite, the rim chased with patterns of ivy and doves. You don't own any silk. You wrap it in a rag and hide it under your mattress. Historical fact. Despite Rome's rigid gender roles, upper-class women sought out prostitutes not always for sex, but for advice, gossip, and secrets. Brothels functioned as shadow salons. Information flowed both ways. A well-placed word from a prostitute could make or break a family. Little-known fact. There were rumors, mostly in satirical poems, that noble women would sometimes dress as workers and sneak into the subura to sleep with strangers. Whether they did it for the thrill or for revenge is debatable. One poem even describes a senator's wife who paid double just to order the man to leave after she was finished. The scholarly debate. Were these stories real or just a Roman male fantasy designed to shame powerful women? Some historians argue that noble women used brothels as a way to experiment with control in a world that offered them none. Others believe the stories were moral warnings. Either way, the myth existed. You sit for a while with the weight of that mirror in your mind, and you wonder what it feels like to see yourself clearly, without a veil, without makeup, without pretense, just yourself. By late morning, the city outside the brothel is roaring with traffic. Inside the Lupanar, the rhythm is slower, but today, you're distracted. A man is at your door, hesitating. He doesn't knock, just stands there. You finally pull the curtain aside yourself and startle him. He's tall, in his 40s, with eyes that dart around like a boy caught stealing wine. "Are you registered?" he asks. You blink. "Yes," you say. "Why?" He frowns. "I'm with the urban cohorts. We're doing an inspection." An inspection. You almost laugh. The registry of meretresses, the state-licensed prostitutes, is one of the empire's favorite hypocrisies. They legalize the trade, tax it, regulate it, and then periodically send men like this to see if you're following the rules. "Do you need to see my name?" you ask, bored. He hesitates. "If it's not too much trouble." You roll your eyes and fetch the wax tablet Granea keeps under the counter. Your name is there, scratched in clumsy letters, next to an age, probably a guess, a city of origin, wrong, and a note, "Well-behaved, rarely complains." You hand it to him. He scans it, then hands it back. "Thank you," he mutters. He starts to leave, then stops. "Can I ask, does being registered help?" You look at him. "It keeps me from being arrested," you say. "Sometimes." He nods slowly. "But does it protect you?" "Not one bit." He nods again, looking down. Then he leaves. The registry isn't for you. It's for them. Later, Aya peeks in, asking what you think of her new earrings. Bronze hoops she found in a pile of laundry. "Don't get caught," you mutter. "If Granea sees you with stolen goods, she'll take them in your ears." She laughs, twirls, and is gone. You can't help but wonder if she'll make it. Lunch today is a bowl of barley porridge and a few dried apple rings. You chew slowly, sitting on the back step with Merope, who has her feet in a bowl of vinegar water. "Inspections again," you say. She groans. "Right. Election year. Probably." She snorts. "The idols pretend to care about us every 4 years. Then they raise the taxes and raid a few taverns for show." Historical footnote. The registration of Roman prostitutes was neither universal nor protective. Women registered as meretresses were stripped of legal protections, including the right to accuse a Roman citizen of assault. That's right. Once you were on the list, your voice in a court of law carried less weight than a slave's. The state recorded your name not to help you, but to mark you permanently as other. Little known fact. Some women tried to avoid registration even if they worked openly, because once you were on the list, Your name followed you forever, even if you married, left the city, or became a respected matrona, that mark remained. You could leave the brothel, but you never left the list. And the debate. Was the registration ever really enforced? Some scholars believe it was a haphazard system, more strictly observed in Rome itself than in the provinces. Others think it was selectively applied. The only thing that seems certain is that no one in power cared if you felt protected. You set down your empty bowl and stretch. The day is only half over. The next client could be rich or drunk or both. But whoever he is, you'll open the door with the legal name on your lips and a fake smile on your face. Because around here, being legal just means knowing which rules they'll bother to enforce. By the time darkness settles over the Lupanar again, the walls seem to breathe it in. The night clients are the wild cards, drunk, angry, sentimental. They come in waves, and tonight is going to be one of those nights. It starts with shouting. A group of men stumbles in, wrapped in cloaks threaded with gold. One of them slaps a fresco on the wall and announces, "I want her," pointing to a painted figure frozen mid-thrust. Maripe yells back, "She's busy, love. Try someone with a pulse." You're already on your feet. You know this type. They're here to show each other how much they don't care about shame. Granea catches your eye and gives a nearly invisible nod. It's your turn. You step forward. One of them, the taller, less drunk one, spots you. "This one," he mutters, "the one they talk about." Another snorts. She looks bored already. "Perfect," the first one says. "She won't be after this." They draw lots. You win or lose. He follows you to your room. As soon as the curtain drops, he drops the act. "How long have you worked here?" "A few years," you lied. "Do you like it?" "Nobody likes it." "Fair enough." He pauses. "Are you always this quiet?" "Only with the ones who don't tip." That gets a laugh, and a silver coin flies your way. Not bad. The session is easy. More talk than action. Afterwards, he lies there for a moment, staring at the wall. "You know," he says, "my father used to come here. I used to think it was disgusting, but now I get it. You stay quiet. I needed to know why he preferred this to home." Eventually, he gets up and leaves without another word. When you step back into the hall, you hear laughter. Aya is standing with one of the kitchen boys, smiling. "What's going on?" you ask. "He said I don't look like a prostitute," she says, giggling. "That I look like a priestess." You grin. Sometimes it's the same thing. "He said I should charge double." "Did you?" "Of course." You lean against the wall and watch the night unfold. Doors open and close. Coins clink. Wine spills. Business as usual. You take 2 more clients before midnight. One is gentle but boring. The other is so drunk you have to hold him up. You retreat to the courtyard and breathe in the night air. Maripe joins you, wiping her mouth. "I had a fellow ask if I could sing," she mutters. "Tried to turn the whole thing into a musical." You laugh. "Did you?" "Yeah, I sang about his tiny cock." You snort so hard your ribs ache. A nighttime historical note. Evening was always the busiest time for brothels in ancient Rome. After the markets closed and the workday ended, men had fewer watchful eyes on them and more wine in their bellies. Some brothels even operated all night, their doorways marked by symbolic images, pine cones, phalluses, lamps. Little known fact. Some clients came in pairs or groups, not always for orgies, but sometimes just to share the experience. There's graffiti in Pompeii that reads like an ancient bro review. "Came here with Cato and Lucius. Great time. 2 for 1. Whether they were joking or just that uninhibited is unclear. and the scholarly squabble. Were nighttime visits considered more shameful than daytime ones? Some believe the night signified secrecy, indulgence, a loss of control. Others think night visits were just practical, easier to slip away from duties, spouses, or senatorial meetings. Either way, the night belonged to you, them, and all the unsaid things they brought with them. Back in your room, you lie down fully clothed, too tired to wash, too wired to sleep. Your skin smells of other people, your muscles hum with repetition, but your eyes are open, staring at the cracked fresco above the bed. Two lovers frozen in motion, their faces worn away by time. You close your eyes. You dream of silence. You don't so much wake up as you surface. Sleep in this place is never true rest. The morning has already started without you. You can hear the familiar shuffle of sandals on stone. You sit up slowly. Your back cracks. Your mouth tastes of regret and yesterday's wine. The silver mirror from the senator's wife is still untouched under your mattress. You pull it out slowly, holding it up to the dim, dusty light. It's beautiful. You tilt it, catching your reflection. You almost look like a stranger. The makeup is mostly gone. The dark circles under your eyes have become shadows. There's a faint bruise on your collarbone, a souvenir from last night. You look older today. Not old, just worn. You wrap the mirror again and hide it. A voice comes from the hall. Felicia, a visitor. You groan too early. You throw on your cleanest shawl and walk to the front room. It's not a client. It's a boy, 10 or 11, holding a scroll. You, Felicia? He asks. You nod. Message. He holds it out. You take the scroll. The wax seal has no markings. You unroll it. Tomorrow, midday, the baths of Julia Felix, a private room. Come alone. No name, no reason. You look at the boy. Who sent it? He shrugs. A tall woman. In green. Not helpful. You toss him a coin anyway, and he scrambles off. The baths of Julia Felix. It's not a place for someone like you. Respectable women go there. Why would you be summoned? You spend the day working. 2 clients before noon, both forgettable. You wash quickly, changing into your cleanest tunic and wrapping yourself in a cloak that conceals more than it shows. When you approach the baths of Julia Felix, you hesitate at the gate. The outer wall is smooth white stone. The guards nod as you approach, though their eyes linger. One of them leads you inside. It's beautiful, quiet, but alive. Fountains murmur. The warm air hugs your skin. The walls gleam with polished mosaics. A servant meets you in a hallway and leads you to a side room. Inside, cushions, a small fountain, a low table with olives and dried figs. And her, the woman in green, older than you, maybe 40, with silver in her black braid and rings on every finger. She gestures to the cushions. You sit. Thank you for coming, she says. I didn't know I had a choice. She smiles. Fair enough. Do you know who I am? You shake your head. I am Vibia Severa. My husband sits on the local council. You keep your face blank. I have heard of you, she continues. From several people. You have a reputation. You listen. I need someone to help me understand what men want, and not in the way you're thinking. You want blackmail? She laughs. I want leverage. It's different. You fold your hands in your lap. And you think I'm your way in. She meets your eyes. You're invisible, Felicia. That's what makes you dangerous. No one sees you, but you see everything. She pulls a pouch from her bag. 10 denarii now. 10 more if you return tomorrow with information. I want to know what my husband says when he thinks no one is listening. You take the pouch. It's heavy. Historical note. Elite Roman women were not powerless, but their power was indirect. They were not allowed in the Senate or the courts, but they controlled households, alliances, and sometimes through networks of gossip and servants, entire political careers. Many had their own networks. Slaves, freed women, even prostitutes who fed them information others dismissed. Little known fact. There is evidence that some brothels served as information-gathering hubs, not by accident but by design. Prostitutes heard confessions, pillow talk, political whispers. Some even sold that information to senators' wives or their rivals. Rome ran on secrets, and secrets had a price. The scholarly debate. Were these women just lucky opportunists or conscious agents of influence? Some historians credit them with subtle but significant shifts in power. Others argue that stories like Vibia Severa's are anomalies, not the norm. But the fact remains, in Rome, silence was a currency, and you've just been paid to spend it. As you walk back to the Lupanar, you hide the pouch of coin deep under your tunic. Tomorrow, you will be someone else, not just Felicia, a spy. You don't sleep that night. By dawn, you've decided you'll go back. 10 denarii is too much to ignore. You rise quietly, stepping over a sleeping Maripe. Her belly is heavier now. You brush a strand of hair from her face and whisper, "Still here?" just to reassure yourself. You watch quickly, using the dregs of wine as a rinse. You slip through the streets like a shadow. At the baths, a different servant meets you. He leads you to the same room. Vibia is there, in a new, wine-red dress. She gestures to a stool. "You came?" She says, "Of course, and you'll have your answers." You reply, "But first, we need rules." She raises an eyebrow. "I tell you what I hear, but I don't tell you who told me. I don't endanger the other girls, and I don't follow anyone. I don't spy. I listen." "Fair," she says. "You're better at this than most senators." You hand her a folded scrap of parchment. On it are 3 names. Men you overheard last night. One discussing a loan he shouldn't have taken. Another admitting he voted against his patron. And the third, Vibia's husband, drunkenly boasting about seizing land with forged temple records. She reads it quickly. "Excellent," she mutters. You stand to leave, but she stops you. "What do you want, Felicia?" You risk being honest. "I want out, not just out of the brothel, out of all of it." She nods. "Then let's not make this a one-night affair." And just like that, you become someone else, not just a body in a bed. You are a woman with information, a broker, a risk. Historical note. It wasn't uncommon for brothels in Rome to function as informal information exchanges. With so many men letting their guard down in intimate moments, prostitutes became walking archives. Some kept mental ledgers of names, secrets, alliances. In rare cases, they passed that knowledge on to women of higher station, wives, mistresses, sometimes even enemies. Little known fact. There's a legend about a prostitute in Capua who blackmailed a wealthy merchant for years by simply pretending to know about his business dealings. In reality, she knew nothing. She just made good guesses, stayed quiet, and let his guilt do the work. She ended up with a villa on the coast. The scholarly debate. Was the role of prostitutes in Rome's political life exaggerated or underestimated? Some argue they were just vessels for male confessions, walls to be whispered to. Others suggest they were active agents in shaping decisions, especially when paired with clever patrons. The truth is likely somewhere in between, not powerless, not all-powerful, just smart enough to survive with a blade made of words. That night, you walk out to the courtyard. where Aya is sitting on the edge of the fountain. You were gone, she says, for a little while. Where did you go? You smile. To the baths. Was it nice? The best I've had in years. Inside, the oil lamps flicker low. You go back to your room, close the curtain, and light your own lamp. You open your secret pouch and count the coins again. More than yesterday. Still not enough. But you have more than money now. You have value, not just to the men who buy you, but to the ones who fear you. You are carving tiny notches into a piece of wood when you hear the fast slap of approaching sandals. Grenea comes whipping around the corner, her face a mask of angry panic. Where were you last night? She snaps. You blink slowly. Here, it's not a lie. Someone saw you leaving, said you were dressed like a freed woman. I went to the baths. I needed a proper wash. With whose money? A client paid. Also not a lie. Grenea exhales through her nose. No secrets, she warns. You know that's how we stay safe. You nod. I don't keep secrets. I just keep options. Her jaw tightens. She nods and walks away. But you know that look. She's not done with you. Your second meeting with Vibia is that evening in a courtyard behind the baths. She's pacing. I need more, she says as soon as you arrive. Something useful, political. Do you know of any affairs? You raise an eyebrow. Besides the dozens happening in the Lupanar every week, she's not in the mood for jokes. My husband has gotten himself into something he shouldn't have. There's talk of missing money from the temple fund. If I had proof, I could protect our estate. You nod slowly. I'll see what I can find. She hands you a pouch, more denarii. Back at the brothel, you listen more closely. You start tracking which clients come back, which ones speak in half-truths. One night you get lucky. A client, a mid-level clerk, he's complaining about a construction project being funded secretly with public money. He names names, and one of them is Vibia's husband. You don't react. You just nod and remember. Marcia finds you later, crouched on the floor. You're hiding something, she says. You have that look. What look? The one we get right before we stop being one of us. You don't answer. Historical note. Mid-level Roman politicians were often corrupt, not because the system was broken, but because it was designed that way. Favors, bribes, and personal gifts funded everything from aqueduct repairs to religious festivals. Prostitution, while considered beneath them, was often the place they loosened their tongues. Little known fact. In one recorded instance, a prostitute in Baiae overheard two senators plotting to defund their rival's temple. She reported it anonymously by scratching the details onto a wall near the forum. The scandal broke within days. No one ever knew who she was. The scholarly debate. Did the information passed through brothels have real political weight, or was it just gossip disguised as danger? Some argue these secrets rarely left the bedroom. Others insist brothels were early intelligence hubs, unofficial but key. Either way, Rome's power structures weren't just built in marble halls. They were whispered in the shadows, traded through bodies and candles and coin. You pass the information to Vibia 2 days later. She reads it with a blank face, then nods and says, "This is enough. You just saved my estate." Later that week, one of the clerks you named is arrested. You hear the news while rubbing oil on your legs. Grenea mutters about it while chewing on dates. She doesn't look at you, but you feel her eyes, and for the first time you realize you're being watched now, not as a girl in a brothel, but as something else. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing you've done yet. A hesitant knock on your door. You put down your comb. The curtain pulls back, and Marcia walks in looking older. I'm leaving, she says. You blink. What? I'm going north, she mutters. To an aunt. She has a farm. Said I can help with the goats. You set the comb down carefully. And the baby? She touches her stomach. He's hers now. She always wanted a daughter. Said she wouldn't ask questions. You nod slowly. When? Tomorrow before dawn. She looks up. Grenea doesn't know. You want to argue not because it's wrong, but because it's sudden. You thought she'd be here, that maybe you'd find a way out together. I stole some bread, she says, like a confession. And oil, don't tell. You smile faintly. I'll miss you. No, you won't, she says. You'll be too busy turning into someone important. She walks over and presses something into your hand, a small iron ring set with red glass. For luck, she says. It's fake? I know. When she leaves, you sit on your cot and look at the ring. It's cheap, chipped, but you clutch it in your palm like a holy relic. You barely sleep that night. Before dawn, you creep to the back hall and watch through the slats of the gate as Marcia disappears down the street. You don't wave, she doesn't look back. The rest of the day feels different. Aya is tense. She started walking with a slight limp. Rough night. Big client, she says with a shrug. Grenea, however, is watching you more closely. She calls you into a side room. You've been busy, she says. I've barely left the Lupanar, you reply. That's the point, she mutters. Girls talk, clients talk, and somehow you always know everything before I do. I'm a good listener. Too good. Tell me, are you working for someone else now? You hold her gaze. Not against you. She nods slowly, then sits beside you. I shouldn't have brought you in months ago. You're smart. Smarter than me, probably. But you're playing a game, and games have rules. You break them, people get hurt. I know. She stands up. If you're gonna keep collecting secrets, at least bring some of them to me. You owe me that. You don't argue. Historical truth. Roman prostitutes had no protection from violence even when registered. They were considered infames, a legal term meaning their testimony carried no weight in court. To be labeled as such meant you could be beaten, raped, or even killed without the same consequences that would follow if you were a respectable woman. Your body became a property, public, disposable. Little known fact. Some women wore tattoos not just to mark themselves as brothel property, but as warnings, symbols inked on the wrist or inner arm that said in effect, do no harm. It didn't always work, but it was a form of protest, however small. And the scholarly debate. Was there any legal path for a prostitute seeking justice? Some argue there were exceptions if the client was a slave, or if the girl was underage, or if the violence disturbed the public order. Others maintain that the law was never really applied to women like you. You existed in a gray space, regulated and taxed, but never protected. You sit with Aya while she sleeps. You run your thumb over the fake ruby in Marcia's ring, and you make a decision. Vibia wants political secrets. Fine, but you're going to start collecting a different kind of power, the kind that doesn't beg senators for mercy, the kind that burns this whole rotten house down from the inside. The first step isn't revenge, but control. You sit in the morning with a bowl of dried figs and make a mental list, not of enemies, not yet, but of leverage points. You're thinking like a merchant, not a girl in a bed. Who owes you? Who fears you? First on the list, Gaius, the banker's son, arrogant with soft hands. He's in debt up to his ears. You saw the letters in his bag when he was too drunk. Next, Decimus, the temple clerk. You caught him once, rifling through Grenea's ledger. And then there's Lurio, the baker's cousin. He likes the girls who flinch, and once made Aya wear a chain around her neck for fun. You don't write his name down. Not yet. His kind deserves more. That night, Vibia summons you again, this time to a villa outside the city. A servant meets you at the gate, leads you through a garden. Vibia is waiting in a colonnade. I heard you've been asking questions, she says. You nod. Good ones. To whom? The ones who matter. And what have you learned? Enough to be dangerous. She sips her wine. Show me. You pull out a small piece of parchment. On it are 2 names, 3 figures, and a date. A schedule of temple funds altered to hide embezzlement. You explain how Decimus forged the signatures. Vibia reads it, then folds it slowly. This is good, she says. Better than I expected. She looks at you closely. You're becoming quite useful. You meet her gaze. I want more than coin. She tilts her head. What then? A way out, a place to go, a clean place. She smiles faintly. There is no such thing as clean, but I can offer quiet, land, a cottage perhaps, far from here. You nod. I'll earn it. When you get back to the Lupanar, Grenea is waiting. Aya hasn't moved all day. You find her curled up, silent. She whispers, I don't want to do this anymore. I know. Can I be like you? You don't know what that means, but you say yes. You show her the list you started. She reads it slowly, then looks at you with something close to awe. We're keeping score now. We always were, you say. We just never wrote it down. Historical truth. In the later imperial period of Rome, brothels began to function more like informal guilds. Women shared knowledge, even created codes to protect one another. Some historians believe these early forms of solidarity laid the groundwork for later female networks. Little known fact. In one Lupanar in southern Gaul, archaeologists found a series of tiny carved tablets, lists of names, transactions, warnings. It looked like an accounting book, but some of the symbols were unfamiliar. A cipher, perhaps, or a code shared between the workers to track dangerous clients. One name appeared 27 times. And the scholarly debate. How organized were these brothels really? Some argue they were just individual enterprises with no cooperation between the girls. Others insist women formed complex whispered alliances, a kind of proto-union. The truth is murky. Most records were made by men, and men rarely bothered to preserve the thoughts of the women they sleep with. But your truth, you're building something now. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't need one. But it's real. Later, Gaius, the banker's son, stumbles into your room, drunk, arrogant. You press a palm to his cheek and whisper, Pay your debts, Gaius, you're being watched. He blinks in confusion. The ones you owe, they've been talking. You smile sweetly. Maybe next time you'll bring more than spare change. He leaves, unsettled. You let him, because fear's worth more than a coin, and some debts can't be measured in silver. You wake to the sound of splashing water, but it's not the usual morning cleanup. It's quieter. Then, a soft knock. You pull back the curtain, and it's the child, the messenger boy. He holds out a bundle. Inside is a single gold aureus and a note. One more task. Tonight, behind the temple of Apollo, come alone, wear red. All day, your mind races. Why behind the temple? What task? And why red? It's a color that screams for attention. It feels like bait. Still, you obey. That night, you borrow a red tunic from Grenea's chest. It's too tight, but it will do. You braid your hair and pin it up high. The temple of Apollo is towering at night, white and majestic. You slip into the shadowed garden, and there she is, Vibia, hooded this time. "You're early," she says. "You told me to wear red." I assumed that meant be punctual. She doesn't smile. "I want you to watch a man. He comes here every full moon, prays, leaves a coin, then meets someone. I want to know who." You melt into the shadows. Your heart is a drum in your throat. After a while, you spot him. Robed, clean-shaven, expensive shoes. You recognize him. He's been to the Lupanar. He kneels at the altar, then slips down a side path. You follow at a distance. He meets another man in a grove, a priest from the look of his robes. They exchange a scroll. The man leaves. You go back to Vibia. She asks, "Well?" You tell her everything. She doesn't react, but something in her shoulders changes, like a knot has come undone. "That's all," she says. "You can go." But you don't move. "Who was he?" you ask. She hesitates. "A man with too much ambition and too few enemies. Until now." She adds, "So what happens next?" "That depends," she says, "on whether you want to watch the world change or be part of the hand that moves it." You don't answer. You don't have to. The gold in your pouch answers for you. Historical note: the Temple of Apollo in Rome was both sacred and political. It wasn't just a place of prayer. It was a meeting spot, a declaration of allegiance. Senators who backed Augustus made donations there to curry favor. Deals were struck in its shadows, secrets exchanged beneath its golden statue. Little known fact: one priest at the Temple of Apollo was once arrested for selling prophecies for coin. He supposedly sold divine messages to gamblers and politicians. He was exiled, but his notes, scraps of goatskin, were found decades later, tucked into the wall of a brothel. The debate: did women like Vibia exist in large numbers, or were they anomalies? Some scholars say powerful women were constantly maneuvering behind the scenes. Others argue these stories are romanticized exceptions. You're not sure which side you're on, but you know this: Vibia isn't the only one pulling strings. She's just the one who realized you could pull them too. You lie back beside Aya and watch the shadows on the ceiling. Your room smells of oil and sweat and old perfume, but underneath it, something else is rising, an undercurrent. You're not just surviving anymore. You're playing, and you're starting to get good at it. The morning after the meeting behind the Temple of Apollo, Rome feels like a different city, tuned differently, like someone has tightened the strings, and now everything hums with tension. You move through it with a purpose, your cloak smelling of torch smoke. You fall back into your routine at the Lupanar, but it's more of an illusion now. You track everything: who comes in, who stays late. You catch whispers, memorize names, and every few days you deliver neatly folded notes to a merchant's cart in the forum. The coins appear under your mattress the next morning. Vibia pays well, but she's not the only one watching you now. Granea catches you after sundown. She holds out a scroll. "This was left for you." You unroll it. You have made a splash. Beware the echo. You don't let Granea see you react. "Probably a bad poem." She isn't laughing. You're being watched, and not by me. "I know." Later that night, after the last client, you retreat to the courtyard. Aya finds you there. "You look like you're about to disappear," she says. "Maybe I am." She sits beside you. "Marcia sent a message." Your head snaps up. She made it. The farm is real. The aunt is kind. The baby is healthy. You let out a shaky breath. She said to tell you, don't wait for a door to open. build your own. You sit in silence, and for the first time it feels peaceful. The next day, you meet Vibia at an old granary by the river. "I'm being watched," she says. "Someone saw us at the temple." You stand perfectly still. "I'm leaving. Not far, just letting things cool down." "What about our work?" She looks at you, really looks. "You're taking over." You blink. "I'm sorry? I showed you how it works. You know who talks, who listens, who pays. I'm a prostitute, Vibia, not a senator." She leans in. "You are who you decide to be. That's the difference between surviving and escaping." She presses a scroll into your hand. Names, notes, addresses, then a second pouch, heavy again. "Gold. This is our last meeting," she says. "For a while, at least. If you get caught, burn this list." And she's gone. Back at the Lupanar, Grenea nods at you. Not warm, not cold, just an acknowledgement. Something has changed. She sees it. You give her 2 names, men to keep an eye on. She raises an eyebrow. "You trust me with this? I trust you don't want a riot in your atrium." She gives the faintest of grins. "Fair enough." From that day on, things move faster. You stop asking for permission. You talk less and hear more. You arrange for one of the girls to stop working nights. She gathers rumors from the taverns now. Another starts recording overheard conversations on a wax tablet, pretending it's for poetry. You are building something, a network, a chain of whispers, a weapon. And one night, it happens. A senator's son stumbles in, drunk, self-important. He corners Aya in the hall and grabs her wrist too hard. She cries out. You are there a second later. He shouts, "She's a whore, I paid." You don't speak, you hold his gaze. "And now you'll pay again." He grins. "What? You'll tell your madam?" "No," you say, "I'll tell your mother, the one who funds half the temple, the one who thinks you're fasting this month." His face goes white. You step closer, your voice low. "I know where you sleep. I know who you owe money to. I know the name of the slave girl you drove to tears last week. You touch my girls again, and I will make sure everyone else knows too." He stumbles out into the street, cursing. You let him go. Aya is looking at you like you've grown wings. You haven't. You've just decided to stop being quiet. Historical fact. By the end of the Republic, many brothels, especially in urban centers like Rome, were informal surveillance hubs. Servants, prostitutes, and tavern wenches often passed secrets from one patron to another. Whether for coin, security, or power, their networks rivaled the official intelligence of any government official. Little known fact. Some Roman women, especially freed women with a background in a brothel, became private informants. One was rumored to have been hired by a praetor's wife to track her husband's affairs. She eventually disappeared. Some say she fled to Egypt, others that she was silenced. The scholarly debate. Did these women hold real power, or were they just tools in the hands of the powerful? Some argue they were disposable, others indispensable, but the truth is clearer now. Power isn't just about who gives the orders. It's about who knows when to speak and when to stay silent. You end the night on your cot, the silver mirror beside you. You unwrap it again, hold it up to your face, and you barely recognize the woman in it. Not because you look different, but because for the first time you look free.